Rawls explicitly contrasts his theories with perfectionism. Perfectionists hold that three things are true. First, there are objectively better and worse ways of life, even among those ways of life that don't interfere with anyone else's freedom or harm other people. For example, a perfectionist might say that classical music was better than rock music. That is, a person is better off learning to enjoy classical music rather than spending his time listening to rock music. Or a perfectionist might say playing on a baseball team is objectively better than watching sitcoms. So a person's life is better lived if he spends time actively doing sports rather than sitting and watching comedy on TV. Second, a perfectionist would say that the government is entitled to take stands on which ways of life are better than others, even when we're just choosing among those ways of life that don't harm other people or limit their freedom. And third, the government is sometimes justified in choosing certain policies solely on the basis of the fact that those policies would tend to push people in the direction of objectively better ways of living rather than worse ways of living. And notice, the government may do that even when the only thing at stake is the well-being of the person living that life. Even when the ways of life none of the ways of life in question affect innocent third parties. Before I go into the contrast between Rawls and perfectionists, let me emphasize some points of agreement. First, Rawls and the perfectionists are going to agree that if we're looking at two ways of living, and one of those ways of living actually harms innocent, non-consenting third parties, right, or limits their freedom, then that's at least potentially something the government should get involved in. So the government may favor certain ways of life based on the idea that if people are living those ways of life, they'll be less likely to cause harm to other people or interfere with other people's freedom. Second, Rawls never denies the claim that some ways of life are better than others, even if none of these ways of life are harming innocent third parties. Rawls is very careful to say that nothing in his theory is skeptical on this question. As part of his political philosophy, he never takes an actual stand on whether or not that's true, right, for reasons we'll go into later. However, Rawls is clear to emphasize that his theories are perfectly compatible with the view that classical music is better than rock music, or baseball is better than sitcoms, or religion is better than irreligion, or no religion is better than religion, or any of those claims. So Rawls wants to say that you can hold those claims very strongly and still accept his theory. In addition, perfectionists don't go so far as to say that the government may simply force people to adopt better ways of life. So where's the point of contrast? The point of contrast is that perfectionists are willing to endorse government policies on the grounds that those policies slant the playing field towards the better ways of life. Now, you can't hold a gun to someone's head and say, start listening to classical music. Right? But you can, according to perfectionists, subsidize classical music or push it in schools or have the president stand up and say, we need more of our classical music tradition or whatever it is. Right? So to use the terms of one contemporary legal thinker, the government can nudge people in the direction of better ways of life. Rawls denies this. Rawls says that the government should not be taking a stand on the question of what are better and worse ways of life. And it should not be making decisions or taking actions based on the idea that those will favor the better ways of life over the worse ways of life. Again, I'm assuming here that we're only talking about competing ways of life that all respect the rights and needs of innocent third parties.